Good evening, good afternoon, good morning, wherever you are watching us from. My name remains Comfort Tayo, your regular host for Connect with Comfort show. On this show, as we always say, we aim to add value to people, enterprise, and personal growth. On each show, we try to feature special guests who helps us to share more insight into the topic of the day. I'm glad you are able to join us today. You are most welcome. The topic for today is as challenging as it is essential, and that is facing your business fears. Excuse me. I'm sure we all know that fear is part of life, and that also rub off on the business world. Is also part of business world. The fear in the business world can manifest in different ways. It can be fear of failure, fear of change, fear of the unknown, and so many other areas that we can have our fears. Whether you are a seasoned entrepreneur or you are just setting out, these fears can be paralyzing if care is not taken. It can hold you back from seizing opportunities, from innovating, and ultimately growing your business. But the truth is, fear is not the enemy. It is how we respond to fear that defines our success. So, facing your fears in business isn't about eliminating them, but about confronting them head on, understanding their roots, how did these fears emanate, and finding the courage to move forward despite the fears that we have. Today, we hope to explore strategies to help us turn our fears into a driving force for growth rather than retarding our growth. We'll also discuss how to embrace uncertainty, overcome self doubt, and build resilience. Because in the end, the business that thrive are not those that avoid fears, but those that face it, learn from it, and grow stronger because of it. So, without much ado, let us go straight into this session and start transforming our fears into fuel for our successes. Our guest is already in the house, and this particular guest is a friend of the house. He has been a partner of this show from the beginning. Well, I'll keep it as that until we come back from this short break. Please remain connected. We'll be right back. Thank you.
Being relevant in your field of occupation is proof that you are properly educated. When my parents and I were thinking about my university education, Bowen University Iwo was our first choice. Bowen University helps you to get the most of whatever course you're studying and also educates you on how to excel in a competitive labor market. From the day I arrived here, I knew when I would graduate, and my mind has been positively transformed since then, thanks to my able lecturers. My name is Salumi. I am a medical student, a sanctuary keeper, and a violinist at Boma University. To the medical world, remember my name.
Bowen University, for excellence and godliness.
You're welcome back. Like I said earlier, our guest today is not a stranger. In fact, like I said, he's a partner from the very root of this show. He is Mr. Rotimi Eyitayo. No prize for guessing. Rotimi Eyitayo is a visionary growth and development strategist with a passion for transforming potential into performance. He has years of experience guiding organizations and individuals towards sustainable growth. Rotimi is known for his innovative strategies, dynamic leadership, and relentless pursuit of excellence. His work has impacted various sectors, empowering leaders to navigate challenges and seize opportunities with confidence. He has written books, he's an author, he has written books, but particularly the one that is relatable to the topic we have today, and that's why he's coming on as a guest. Face Your Fears. So please join me in making welcome our guest for today, Mr. Rotimi Eyitayo.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Good evening and welcome to the show. Straight away, I'll ask, what are the most common fears entrepreneurs face when starting or growing a business?
Thank you very much. So there are different fears that entrepreneurs face. One common fear is the fear of failure. A lot of people at the point of starting and also at the point of growing their businesses tend to be afraid of failure. And sometimes there's the fear of certainty, where a lot of people are not sure of financial stability. So aside of your startup capital, a lot of times people have that fear if they will be able to meet up with the demands, the financial demands of the business, and of course of the operations. Some people also have the fear of the unknown, which sometimes has been responsible for limiting the level at which organizations operate, even to the place and the pathway of scaling their businesses. So these are few fears that some people face. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Well said. So, looking at how you have described the common fears that people face, I know there could be lots more. How do you see these fears impacting decision making or and business growth? Because it can be both.
So that's a very good question. Fear tends to have these characteristics of immobilizing individuals and systems and sometimes institutions. So with fear, a lot of times people tend not to take certain steps. Sometimes fear tends to cripple the degree of operations. So there are businesses that prefer to expand beyond their current area of domain, but because of fear, they tend to withhold their expansion or extension plan. And so these are the things that can happen when fear is prevalent or dominant in an organization. And some experts have said that fear thrives on ignorance. So the more ignorant a business entrepreneur or a business is about a particular area or domain, the heightened the fear. So it simply means that the less we know about a matter, the tendency is that they hire the fear on that matter. So sometimes entrepreneurs get to see other people in the same industry running ahead, going full scale towards a particular path that they're afraid of. And most likely is because those people have some measure of knowledge and illumination about that area. Therefore, fear tends to keep us back. And then some people take the bold step, regardless of the fear, to face the fear.
Wonderful, wonderful. So the fear of the unknown, more because of lack of knowledge. That is something that is commonplace. So how do businesses or business owners and identify if their fear for their business is rational or irrational? You can say you have a fear, but should you really have that fear in the first instance?
Thank you very much. Sometimes that tug of war will always happen. When we begin to look at the evidence, some people even take a step further to look at the patterns. That's when you know whether this fear is a rational fear or this is just irrational fear. Sometimes people take a step further when they're trying to adjust and they're looking at if there's a trend, or maybe there's, for example, statistics or data, that speaks about a particular thing. For example, saturation in the market, where there's more supply than demand. So the fear of actually thriving in that place is a rational fear. It's a fear that we should consider. It's a fear that we should bring knowledge to. But fear that is not thinking about different points of view, fears that are based on biases, those are actually irrational fears.
Excellent. Well said. So the fears that we have come to understand to be rational, which we are actually to see as part of reality, because like we started by saying, fear is part of life, and so it's also part of business life. So how do business owners manage or mitigate these rational fears?
Thank you very much. That's another interesting question. So, for those individuals who want to tackle certain fears that we call rational fears, and sometimes we need to approach those fears with market intelligence reports, if there are. Sometimes there might be need for blind surveys if there's a possibility for that. And sometimes this is where people begin to introduce what we call calculation of risk, calculated risk. Because the truth about it is when we look at the cost and we weigh it to the benefit, we look at the dynamics and the intricacies, we begin to see ways where we can navigate through that existing fear. So there are times that people now begin to heighten their level of networking or they heighten their level of collaboration because the fear they have might speak about their size and strength. And so in the case of trying to meet up with a particular expectation, businesses can now go to the place of collaboration to tackle. We've seen the birth of consortiums as ways to tackle rational fears. And I think that's something that entrepreneurs and business professionals should consider.
Okay, that's good. So, well, part of the fear that we have defined is fear of failure or fear of rejection. So, how do you see this type of fear holding back a business from achieving its full potential?
Yes, thank you. So when we think about the full potential of a business, the potential of the business is all the business can have, but they've not yet possessed. The potential of a business is all that they can do and they have not yet done. And so when we think about it, fear now stands in between the bridge. And so we need to now begin to look at how businesses can create what we call drivers of performance. And so when they think about the rewards, or they can give a compelling reward for their stakeholders or themselves, it gives us the capacity to scale that fear. When we think about the fact that Others have also done something similar before. You know, it also gives businesses the opportunity to, when businesses begin to recount their exploits before that time, they call it counter trophies. When you think about the things you've done in previous incidents, then that also tells you that it's something that you can achieve, it's something that you can do. So these are things that are clues that businesses can actually use to overcome their fears. And the truth about it is that every business at some point in time will experience fear, but not all businesses will face their fear. So we have to decide, are we just going to experience our fear? Are we going to go beyond experiencing to facing these fears?
Fantastic. That leads me to a question that, yes, every businesses face, experience fear. Are we ready to face it? So, in this instance, fear of a failure, we have been told that we do not necessarily see failure on its own as maybe deterrent. There could be an underlying opportunity in there. So, how do we change that failure to a learning opportunity instead of just looking at it as something that I have failed? So, what is the learning opportunity from that failure?
Yes. So a lot of people have been able to trade on their failures, and they've been able to use it to optimize their performance as organizations, to be precise. So people have come up with roadmaps, they've come up with templates that they've even sold in some cases to other people who are in that same industry, just because they've been able to use their own learnings and their own failures to just show others the way. We've heard of organizations and associations and institutions that have created standards that have helped them to be able to show how professionalism should happen, what corporate governance should be. And it's because of some of these failures. In the banking industry, we've seen people use fraud cases. We've seen people use theft as a case study where they use it to improve fiscal behavior or compliance within the workforce. So
Yes,
it
yes, yes.
somehow starts with failure. However, some people have looked at it from different eye to say, let's create learning moments, learning points. Let's create a feedback system that will help us not repeat the same thing again. And so from failure, it turns into a story. From a story, it turns into a pathway. From a pathway, it becomes a template. From a template, it becomes a system. And that way, people begin to grow along the line.
Interesting. That's really information laid in there. Now, this fear and risk, there's an interplay. So, what role does fear play in risk management, and how can businesses or business owners balance the fear with taking necessary risk? We understand that risk is an element or necessary part of business growth, calculated risk, that is. So, how do business owners balance that?
That's a very good question. I think that we must, as businesses and business owners, look at fear as a tool sometimes. It's not only a threat, it's a tool. Some people use fear as a thermometer to feel how much more they understand the steps that they are taking. And so, because of that, a lot of people have gone into doing what we call root cause analysis. They've been able to look at certain things that have happened in the past. And because of not trying to fail again, or they don't want to fail in their own case, they're able to drill down. And then they start creating scenario analysis where you have best case scenarios, worst case scenario. What happens if something goes wrong? And instead of us just getting scared, people have now taken steps to now analyze the possibilities. And that's why you start seeing the rise of appreciation of data, where people are able to puncture holes at the things that would have caused them to be immobilized just because they were afraid. But now they are getting answers, and they are able to use both critical thinking and lateral thinking to go through, go over, go under the current fears that they face. So risk management and fear, when fear is visible as a tool, is something of leverage. But when it's a threat, then it's something that is against us. So I think that can also help organizations to be able to grow.
Okay, thank you. So, in trying to balance fear and risk, we can bring the word caution. Maybe one is trying to be cautious in avoiding um, loopholes that can be detrimental to the business. So, can too much caution be detrimental to business? And if so, why?
So that's a tricky one. And when we hear the word too much, then it speaks about extremes. So there are positive extremes, there are negative extremes. However, extremes must be very, very careful. We must be careful about that because sometimes we've seen businesses that have been so focused on fear that they were so focused they eventually failed. Because what you focus on begins to grow. We give energy to the things we focus on. So when you focus on failing, what if it goes wrong? What if it goes wrong? It starts as a good question. It starts as raising concern, but if it permeates into the corporate culture, then we'll become an organization of fearful people. And then it will affect the sales department, it will affect the business development department, and then we'll start working from sizing down, cutting down, managing things as opposed to going all out. And that sometimes can be the reason businesses begin to nosedive. So fear is not something that should be given too much importance, but it should be considered. It should never have a VIP seat in our businesses.
Okay. It's not to be treated as a VIP, but as well, it's a guest that you must recognize, if I can put it that way. That's very interesting. So, how can entrepreneurs leverage fear to drive innovation as well as creativity in their businesses?
Thank you so much for that. I have this equation that I normally use for fear. And I tell people that when you think about fear in a very practical sense, fear is just two things present: energy and concern. And so for the entrepreneur, when you strip concern off fear, you are left with energy. And so a lot of us, we are concerned about what will go wrong. We're concerned about what if we don't get profit. We're concerned about what if we get a no when we write the proposal. We're concerned about a lot of concerns. Now, if you're able to pick all those concerns and find answers to them, you're left with energy. And so fear most times is just an invitation for us to convert the energy into drive. It's the same passion. It's the same energy in passion that is the same energy in fear. So we need to tackle it with intelligence, and then the entrepreneur gets it at an advantage. It becomes that motivation to do much more. It's just like when people are chased by a dog. The fear of a dog bite will make someone running away from a dog to scale a fence, right? And it's because of that they now see that fear in itself is energy. It was just energy that found expression with concern. And so when we get back to our businesses, all the things we are concerned about: the market, the concern about the industry, the economy, the client, is what we should find answers for. The remaining will be energy to execute.
Fantastic. So the energy that pushes you because of the fear of a dog biting you makes you to jump the fence. I think
Exactly.
that's a high energy. Thank you very much. So how does fear of financial instability affect decision making in small businesses? Okay, let me step that down. We have a question from one of our online audience. Taiwo Ojo from Abuja says, please, if the fear turns to a threat, how should we treat it so that it will not make us shut down the businesses if your fear is seen as a threat?
I think a lot of us must begin with the mind. When our fear has now become a threat, then it means that the fear has taken on a persona in the business. So
New
sometimes
dimension.
what we need to do is to first re-engineer our minds. It's at that time organizations are advised to go on retreats. It's at that time organizations are even expected to bring in new people to see things from a different perspective. When you think about it from a place of strategy. When your fear has immobilized you so much, there are some questions that we should ask ourselves. For example, you can say, what's the worst that will happen? Even with that fear, what's the worst that will happen? A lot of times, some people are so scared that they'll be rejected. And they'll say, if you are rejected and they say no, will you die? No. Will the business end? No. What's the worst that will happen? Oh, you wasted paper in printing proposal. You wasted amount of this part, but you would have gained database. So sometimes it's just to get ourselves to look on the other side, and then flip the coin, and then you feel empowered again. But the danger is anytime fear begins to take your energy, then something big is going wrong. So you must protect your energy. The business life, it's the energy that it has. And so when you see that, sometimes you might need to do a team bonding retreat, you might need to read a book, you sometimes might need to look at, are there psychological barriers inside of us? For some people, they have money blocks. They are okay to any amount up to 100 million naira. Anything above 100 million naira, they are disabled. So sometimes some people, they have to go closer to abundance. You have to go to a place that is expensive. You have to maybe treat yourself to something you've never experienced before, so that you feel that your business is worth more. And when you feel that way, you begin to see the tide turn. I hope that helps.
Yeah. Taiwo, I hope that helps. There's another contribution from Dr. Aseyi from Abuja as well. Fear encourages you to engage in scenario planning. Yes, I guess said that earlier. It encourages you to bring out different scenarios and see what works best at a particular time, or the path to take. Thank you very much, Dr. Asein, for that contribution. So I will take the question again that I stepped down for Taiwo's question, and that is, how does fear of financial instability affect decision making in small businesses?
So a lot of businesses are going to find themselves not going for more. You find out that a lot of them would now deny themselves of market leadership because that instability, that fear that they're not going to be able to make or meet up with their bottom line, their workforce, their cash flow, sometimes it makes them to play small. So we find out that a lot of people, the size of the market they're playing in, they have a very little percentage. And so they are now going to start withdrawing, trying to manage what they have instead of growing what they have. And with time, instead of them advancing and growing, they begin to die. Their operations begin to die. Their marketing begins to die. There's no budget for marketing. There's no budget for relationship management. And at the end of the day, they are left with a stagnant state. And at the end of the day, probably business shuts down. So we must understand that the fear of instability financially should actually raise us to start exploring revenue streams. How do we cross sell in our business? How do we upsell in our businesses? How do we do forward integration or backward integration? Can we change business forms? Can we add on new product line? Is our offer of value clear to the market space? Can we come up with certain campaigns that will make us sought after rather than seeking after? All those things eventually will help us scale through the financial fears or the fears of financial instability.
Thank you very much. I will quickly take a short break after this. Okay, Taiwo has responded that your response to her question is well taken and applies. Thank you very much. So we'll go on a short break right now and we'll be right back. Please remain connected. Thank you.
I wanted to give up, I'm done with all the things I'm going through. I'm trying to keep my head up. I try to win, but every time I lose. Should be getting better. I try, but I don't know what to do. Hope this ain't forever. I just wanna make a breakthrough, but something inside said never give up. All of these setbacks are major setups. If I keep on fighting, if I keep on trying, if I aim for the sky, one day things will go my way. One day things will go my way.
You welcome back, and the message from that video, Fearless Soul, is that we never give up, and that also means facing our business fears squarely and overcoming it. Thank you for staying tuned. Now, we'll ask, what are the psychological effects of chronic fear in a business context, and how can they be addressed?
So the psychological effect is quite real, and it's quite devastating. A lot of times we found out that we begin to have what we call market bias. We begin to have customer bias. The psychology effect is that even it makes people begin to feel like they are having what we call imposter syndrome. You know, they feel that would the people receive our product or our services right? And so sometimes it begins to create what we call defective existence or expression of businesses. And I've come to realize that entrepreneurs and even large organizations, when they step into a psychological state of fear that is chronic, they now become intentionally uninviting as an organization. So they begin to tone down. They don't make noise too much. You know, we are not in the league of those that they would, they begin to cut their clothes supposedly according to their thoughts, not their fabric, not their size. And so at the end of the day, chronic psychological fear can even lead to people thinking of shutting down. I've heard people say, I'm throwing in the towel, I'm giving up. There's no fish in this sea, just because they didn't like the result they saw. And then they took the result that they saw to fear instead of to research. They took it into fear instead of strategy room. They took it into fear instead of brainstorming. So I think that chronic fear will always destabilize, destroy. At the end of the day, both the organization and the people in it, they get to go under.
Thank you. So, on that part of psychological effects, what resources are available for entrepreneurs struggling with anxiety related to their business? Because that's a form of psychological effect too.
So there are several tools. Some are directly related, some are not. Sometimes it's always said that entrepreneurs should take this activity called the wheel of life. Sometimes it's advised that they should take that activity first, whether they are starting or they are in the process of growing their business. You know, whether they are emerging or even at their established phase. The wheel of life tries to paint a lot of things in perspective, so that even when you don't have the results you're looking for, you're living a conscious, balanced perspective to life. And that makes you not feel that because you failed in a transaction, it doesn't automatically create a label of a failure to you, right? Sometimes some people have actually seen a customer saying no, and they've thought about it so bad that they see that themselves, the no was saying to them. So there are tools like that. A lot of people also what we call the DISC assessment, because sometimes they are personality driven. You know, so a lot of people use the DISC tool. Some people also go a step further to do what we call shadow therapy, where A lot of them are able to go to identify what their fears are, what are their limiting beliefs. Some people have gone to the extent of even going through bioresonance therapy, where they're able to see that is there something that was in their past that is a reflection of why they think success is not deserving to them or their brand. So you find out that a lot of people at the verge of breakthrough sabotage their breakthrough themselves. That's why sometimes some people create an organization and they sit in all day and they don't go out marketing. And it's not that they don't know they are to market. It's just at the point of marketing, they just say, this thing is stress. The body is preserving them by calling it stress, but they are shutting their business because they are holding back. So these are a few things that they might need to do.
Thank you very, very much. So, how can business owners cultivate a support system or network, as we call it, to help them face and overcome their fears?
Thank you so much.
Okay, sorry. Let me step that down for a contribution from one of our online audience, Mr. Femi Jaisimi says the fear of losing control has made most family businesses either close up or wind up. What should the owners of these family businesses do to ensure they overcome this fear and integrate outsiders?
I think that number one thing to do is to create what we call an extended visioning. It's you have to re-envision the brand again. You know, when people begin to think about the end, not just the beginning or the journey, it gives you a better perspective. Do you want the business to die with you? Do you want the business to end? Is this business a legacy project? Do we want the name to be recurring or the impact to be recurring? Because of those results or because of those outcomes, then you are now becoming very inclusive in your vision. So you need to practice vision alignment for the people you are integrating from the outside world. Sometimes a lot of people have to create what we call structures. Structures tend to separate that personal bias, and then the business begins to find its own expression as an entity. But the challenge is that a lot of pioneers are already interwoven with their brand that it's almost difficult to make it a distinct brand. So they feel, how can I give a part of me away? Or I don't want someone to handle a part of me in a particular way. But the truth about it is that only you is not enough when you think about the growth and the scale of the business. We are finite, the business is infinite. Therefore, for the success of now, the success of later, and probably the success of forever, it will be necessary for us to swallow that bitter pill, address the elephant in the room, and create a design. The structure can be so systematic that you are very, very clear about the pattern of integration, the percentage of integration, the control and the size and the power of integration, meaning that nobody's not going to wake up and take you out of the picture. And then a lot of times with corporate governance, consultants are able to help you create these things. You'll be able to address the fear. The truth about it is it's just a concern, but it must never stay a concern. It must go from a concern to a conversation, from a conversation, a designed culture. That way, you will end up having a business that will live long after the pioneers.
Thank you very much. Okay, follow on from the same person, helping them manage their business instead of realizing uh, realizing on the children. Okay, I want to believe that is resting on the children or relying on the children must be who do not have the same prerequisite experience to take the business to greater height. Okay, it's like follow on what he was saying, rather relying on children that may not even have the interest in that line of business, which means their vision is not aligned with that of their parents or the father or mother. Would it not be better to integrate outsider? I think that's what that one is saying in essence. So I think it's been covered by your response, unless if you have additional points to make on that,
Yes, I
where
think
you have
it's
children that are not aligned with the vision that parents are making. Pardon?
Yes, I think the only additional thing could be that the integration of children into those businesses, it might be now from a managerial perspective, not necessarily from an administrative perspective, where they are in the business, neck deep in the operations. And if you are able to get a team to midwife the business to a level of success, the children can come in much later to benefit from the success or to steer the ship way or the other. So some people get interested in such businesses at different intervals. Some might be at the place of infancy, at the place of growth, and sometimes some might be at the place of established state. So the goal is to make sure that the organization is established. Maybe by then they might now be able to get in to be a part of it.
I hope that answered your question, Mr. Femi Jaisimi. Thanks for that contribution. So I'll go back to the question that I stepped down, and that is how can business owners cultivate a support system or network to help them face and overcome their business fears?
So I think businesses and business owners should deliberately find their tribe. When I say their tribe, people that probably have the same kind of values, they think in the same kind of line, and they feel safe with. So you can come up with business association or register to be a functional institutions that they already are going in the line of your direction and your dream. So that's why people are part of professional bodies. Professional bodies sometimes take it upon themselves to shed light on the industry and the pathway forward so that the members of that institute or professional body are able to gain from the power of collective effort or from the power of collective direction and visioning. So businesses should not take lightly association, institution, movement, or network of some sorts. They come in different shapes and sizes so that when you feel weak, that kind of place you get strong. And some people give you opportunity to actually share your world, share expertise, and from there begin to grow their brand and grow their work pipeline. So it can work either ways, but organizations should never stand alone. It's very dangerous to be alone. It's very dangerous to stand alone.
Thank you very much. You are speaking to the need for collaboration, and it is more needed in this trying time that we are in, both for experience sharing and then part of even risk sharing. So it's good to collaborate. Thank you very much. So, how does the fear of change or disruption impact business adaptability, and how can leaders prepare for and embrace change? That's a
So the
mouthful.
first part of the question is how can fear of change impact that adaptability? The first thing is that a lot of times, because of certain fears, some people have deliberately designed a system that creates a bubble for their brand. Unfortunately, they call it self management, but it's actually system destruction. So it creates a destruct for themselves. So it's almost like everybody's trying to make sure that no, 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 we don't want change to happen. But we've come to realize that institutional change is always compelled by sectoral change. And the world is so dynamic. So as sectoral changes are taking place, institutions are compelled to change. And of course, institutional change will always compel individual change. It's not the other way around all the time. It's not individual change that will change institutional change most times. It's the other way around. And so when you want to look at that fear of coming change, a lot of people, because of that, have decided to play small or sometimes to stay back. They are not in the game because they don't want disruption. But then for some people, because of the coming change, they have started looking at creating an agile workforce. They've started changing their mode of operation. Some people have started thinking about different ways to ensure that change, whether it's technological change, whether it's economical change, and all the other kind of changes that might occur, will not hit them by surprise. right? And that's actually what it is. It's just almost like saying, smell the cheese before it gets stale. So when people begin to think about it from that angle, individual entrepreneurs begin to anticipate what will happen, what happen, what if this happens, and that's why some people begin to act like there's a need for their department or their organization to have what you call a futurist unit, where you are just taking time to anticipate several kinds of change in workforce law, change in government policies, change in a lot of things. And that's way a lot of people get prepared.
Thank you very much. It's been such a wonderful session. I want to ask if you have a parting shot on this topic before we go for recap.
All right, thank you. I'll just say that facing your business fear is not a nice to have, it's a must have experience. And the truth about it is, organizations and individuals that begin to face those fears, they tend to realize that sometimes that fear has been over exaggerated in some cases. And some people are telling each other that, okay, yeah, but the fear is real. How can I get past that reality of that fear? I'll tell you this as I sign off: bring a bigger fear to your current fear, and that current fear fades away. So when you do that, you'll find out that at the end of the day, it's easier to move beyond experiencing fear to facing the fear. Thank you very much for having me.
Before you sign off, you just ignited something that needs further interrogation. Bring a bigger fear to face the existing fear. So how do you mean?
So, for example, someone is afraid of, maybe, what if I get rejected if I make a pitch or proposal to an organization? Now, that fear is a current fear of rejection. Now, if you bring a bigger fear is, if you do not have business, you will not pay salaries, no cash flow, the business is going under. When you think about that bigger fear, the fear of rejection begins to dissipate. You understand? So it's
You have to
better
find
and
a
it's
way
easier
around
to
it.
face the smaller. Exactly. So most times you just trick the fear by bringing a bigger fear, and the current faces and fades away.
Fantastic. Thank you very, very much, Rutimi, for these great insights. For bringing you, I had no doubt because this is an area that you have a mastery, and that's why you were brought on. Thank you very much, and you have done uh, great justice to the topic. So I hope our audience have learned a word or two to use in their business and to help them to face their business fears. I would like to once again appreciate our guest, Rotimi Eyitayo, for this great insight, as well as appreciate our online audience for following us, and especially those that joined us today, those that contributed uh, on this topic. We had Taiwo Ojo from Abuja. Um, we have Wendy Garuba also joining us. Wendy Garuba Ayeni, I beg your pardon. We had Femi Jayesimi, then Dr. Ebela Seyin from Abuja also. And I think I saw Niyi also joining us. Niyi Olajide. Thank you all for joining us today. I hope you've enjoyed today's show. I will do a quick wrap up session just for fulfilling all righteousness, because I believe our guests have dished a lot of insight for us. So we already know the definition, and we cannot really fully define all the types of fears that we have, but we know the fear of failure, fear of rejection, fear of financial instability, and all the world that could possibly happen. What is important for us is to face our fears and to see how we can overcome them, not just to face our fears, but we must face the fear with the mindset of overcoming the fear. Fear is natural response and can be an indicator of growth opportunities. We must not lose sight of that. Then we also must encourage self-reflection to identify specific fears that has been holding us back. Like I guess sometimes you need to look at the bigger fear to make all the other smaller fear to disappear. If you know you have responsibility to pay bills at the end of the month, you will not have a fear of rejection to hold you back from trying or venturing into other areas. So we must look at fears that in business, if we do not face it squarely, we might miss opportunity. So that is something that should make us uh, face our fears so that we can expand, so that we can grow. Because a business that is not growing we have problem of sustainability. So we need to overcome our fears in that regard. And we are also told by our guests that sometimes some of these fears are born out of lack of knowledge. Sometimes when you do not have enough knowledge about something, you express or you have that fear about how would it work, how would it go. So you can make research, you can like we talked about scenario planning and all that. That can also help us. Taking small steps towards facing fears rather than making drastic change would also help us. So we must learn to build a support network. We have been told how this can be very useful in facing the fears of our businesses because it helps us to leverage on mentors, people that can mentor us, people that have faced that type of situation before and they have overcome it. So they can actually cut short the trip for us, so to say. So we need to have peers that we collaborate with and professional networks and guidance for reassurance. This is very important. We must also understand how we can transform our fear into motivation. Reframing, like our guest said, we review our fear as a challenge rather than threat. And challenge should spur us, create more energy in us. Like the example of the energy of somebody fearing the dog bite that scaled the fence. It may not be that drastic, but it's fuel energy in us when we are challenged. Oh, you think I cannot do this? Let me see how to challenge myself to make sure that I achieve it. It's like turning it into fuel for our success, to fuel the passion for our success. We also must learn to build resilience, developing the ability to bounce back from setbacks. We should not just see failure as failure. It has a learning curve for us, things that will make us to learn how to do things differently and do things better. So there's always the opportunity uh, lining the walls of failure for us. Then we have to be mindful of the steps we are taking, stress management techniques, like our guest said, sometimes you just need to shut down temporarily and just clear your mind, to empty your mind so that you can think clearly, more clearly, and reapproach whatever it is that is giving you fear in your business. We've talked about scenario planning. You can also seek professional help. There's nothing wrong in seeking help, and it does not demean you to seek help when it is necessary. So, coaching people, you can have people to coach you on some things. You can get counseling, consulting services can also help you to face areas of fear. Then we must develop a growth mindset because if you keep thinking that you cannot do something, then that can continue and then it becomes your reality. So we must have that growth mindset that can do spirit must always be encouraged to make sure that we get above our fears. And we must also continue to improve ourselves too in the learning, adapting in the face of fear. We must improve ourselves, get more knowledge about our business, about the changes that is happening in the sector, in the business where we are in, to make sure that we are not lacking on strategies of how to adapt and to move on. We also learn to celebrate small wins, recognize and celebrate progresses that we have made, no matter how small. That helps to build our confidence. Our guest was saying sometimes you pamper yourself. If you are feeling too low, you treat yourself to lavish something just to boost your confidence. All that also work is a part of strategy. So we need to take the necessary step to identify and take concrete steps to overcome our fear. We must commit to personal and professional growth to also be able to achieve this so that we have a sustained business success. Then we must also leverage on community support, like we've talked about networking, collaboration. So, as in conclusion, I want you to remember that every successful entrepreneur and business leader has faced fear at some point. So you are not the first. So what sets them apart is their ability to embrace that fear, learn from it, overcome it, and use it to drive their vision forward. That is very important for us as a take home. I encourage you, therefore, to reflect on the fears that may be holding you back presently. Instead of avoiding those fears, confront them head on, confront them with the mindset that they are stepping stone towards your greater purpose. As you move forward in your business ventures, hold on the belief that courage is not the absence of fear, but the determination to push through it. The challenges you face today will become the stories of resilience and success you tell tomorrow. That is a fact. All these business movies that you see, they have story to tell from what has happened to them in the past. So once again, I'd like to appreciate all of you that have joined us. Those that have not been able to pick your name, you are recognized. I appreciate you for joining us. Please continue to follow us on our weekly program. I can see Belumi Kayode. Thank you for joining us. So, if you have enjoyed today's show, please remember to subscribe to my YouTube channel, Comfort Eyitayo. Once you have subscribed, please turn on the notification button, like and share our videos. Stay updated with information about upcoming events, solutions, and offers on my Instagram account at Comfort Eyitayo, as well as my Facebook account at Comfort Eyitayo. Till I come your way again, let's face our fears, embrace our potential, and achieve the success we are all capable of achieving. I wish you all the best in your endeavors. Thank you and God bless.